present so that we start. I see 1, 2, Honorable Mikalakis, Honorable Sileku, Dodovu, Martha Bartlett, Shaik, yes, we form a quorum. I think we must start with our meeting. Let me start by heartily welcoming all of you in this meeting of the Select Committee on Cooperative Governance, Traditional Affairs, as well as Human Settlement, Water and Sanitation. But this afternoon, as you are aware, our focus will be on cooperative governance and traditional affairs, COCTA. And I want to take this opportunity to heartily welcome the Honorable Minister as well to our meeting, and all other officials who are part of this important meeting. Equally welcome all members of Parliament after our recess. As you are aware, this term is going to be very, very much hectic, in which we are going to consider the annual performance plans of different departments, consider their budgets, engage with those, but over and above that, we are going to have some debates in the House with a view of adopting those particular budgets and plans. It is going to be quite hectic, but I think because we had some break, we are going to do everything in our power to ensure that we interact appropriately with those. We understand more and better what is it that the departments are doing, so that we impact in their work and we exercise our oversight function accordingly in a way that will ensure that in the overall we accomplish the objectives that are set before us. With that, I just want to check with Moss any apologies to the meeting.
Yes, Chair, we've got only one apology from Honorable Ngesi.
Yes, that's the only apology.
Yes, Chair.
All right, no, thank you very much. We are going to proceed. As you are aware, we are going to interact with 3 presentations. The first presentation will be on cooperative governance, COCTA. Cooperative governance. Let me say cooperative governance. The second one will be on traditional affairs, with all the new changes and the legislation that we adopted in respect of the Initiation Act, Customary Initiation Act. I'm sure the department would like to share with us its plans to ensure that that is implemented. But lastly, we are going to interact with the MISA, the Municipal Infrastructure Support Agent, in which we are also going to check what is it that they do to provide technical and infrastructural support to municipalities, and whether do we see any improvement in that respect. In terms of how I propose we move forward is that we are going to deal with the 3 presentations separately. And at the point that I know that the minister has got an engagement in the National Assembly as well, which is quite important. At the time that she indicates that she would want to be excused, she would indicate that to us. But as to how we are going to proceed forward, I suggest that we take the first presentation on COCTA, we engage with that presentation, we then take traditional affairs, we engage with it, and lastly we take MISA. I don't want us to lump them and get one presentation, because these are separate departments and entity, and it is quite important that we get the grasp with the clear understanding of how they intend to execute their plans this year and what is the budget for each and every component that we are going to deal with. I also propose that before I invite the Honorable Minister to have a word before we get the presentations, I also would like us to get more information about the accomplishments in terms of the previous financial year. What are the issues? What are the challenges? What is it that the department has achieved? What is it that the department has not achieved? And in the course of this presentations, I'm sure it could be quite useful to get the opinions of the Auditor General in respect of the three components that we are dealing with this afternoon. I think with that, it will give the members the opportunity to get the understanding of what is it that these components are doing in respect of their work. With that, can I take this opportunity to invite the Honorable Minister to make a statement or to have a word with us before and guide us in terms of how we are going to proceed forward in respect of the presentations. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the Select Committee, members of the Select Committee on Corporate Governance and Traditional Affairs, Water, Sanitation and Human Settlement, the Deputy Minister, Babela, executives of SALGA, officials of the department, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for this opportunity to simultaneously present to you the 2021 and 2022 annual performance plans for the department, and also the APPs which are also integrate the work of some of our entities and agencies under the departments. These will include functions of the National House of Traditional Leaders, the National Demarcation Board, SALGA, and the National Disaster Management Center, and MISA. As per norm, the National Disaster Management Center forms part of DCOG Annual Performance Plan. MISA has prepared a separate presentation, and of course, the others have have their own presentations, which may not be necessarily today. Chairperson, I must say from the onset that the task of the promotion of cooperative government is one that is transversal. And because we aspire to be a developmental state, this implies that whereas we have departments and entities which largely work with and through the efforts of other departments and entities in all spheres of government, we also have responsibility of marshalling all of society, including the institutions of traditional leadership, behind our common objective of delivering a better life for all. This objective requires the critical ingredients of resilient, prosperous, caring, coherent, connected, and sustainable, safe, and climate smart communities. Consequently, the true measure of what we have achieved or not achieved really lies in all of society and the APPs of virtually every department and national entity. That is why we present this APP really as a halfway stop to where we know we should have been. Already we are beginning to find harmony with National House of Traditional Leaders, principally because of their revolutionary Invest Rural Master Plan, which will transform the economic, social, and cultural landscape of rural South Africa. We are finding each other with the broader sector as we work together through the joint MINMEX, which we host with the Ministry of Human Settlement, Water Affairs and Sanitation. We are also actively and collectively identifying challenges and seeking solutions with SALGA as we undertake the 21-year review and edge towards the local government elections. And through the district development model, we are also strengthening collaboration with other departments. We have found gaps in the disaster management framework and intend strengthening the disaster management framework by, amongst other things, appointing the advisory board. We are ever thankful for the support we have received from the committee and are certain that we can rely on it as we reshape key programs such as the Community Works Program. We are ever conscious that the road ahead requires that our department and entities act as one. Therefore, we will endeavor to, in future, present less targets and indicators so that we display integration and show the maximum impact. We'll also endeavor to sequence our actions such that they also add value to the work of other departments and spheres. Thus, we present this APP as a pointer to the road ahead, conscious that we are not yet there. The road is long and with much challenges. It is our hope that we can rely on the steady and guiding hand of the committee to accelerate us and get us there. The DGs and their teams will go into details on these issues as they make their presentations. But thank you very much to the chair and to the members of the Select Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Over to you, DG.
Good afternoon to the Honourable Chairperson and to the members of the Select Committee, to our Minister, the Deputy Minister and all the executives and officials from the department that are here present today. I am here to actually present to the Select Committee on the cooperative governance and traditional affairs annual performance plan for 2021-22. And the background here is that our annual performance plan for the department has been tabled in Parliament on the 15th of March and has been developed by the management and also in consultation with the ministry. If we could move to the next slide, please. So the departmental priorities and outcomes, we have 5 strategic outcomes in particular, and that is the focus on being effective and efficient in terms of the corporate governance systems. We also need to ensure that the intergovernmental relations, through the district development model is indeed effective, not only for our department, but also across the sector. And also that we need to ensure that we have improved municipal financial viability, but also ensure that we have sustained good municipal governance and an integrated planning service delivery. If you move to the next slide, please. The department's vision, mission, and values. These are firstly to ensure that we have service excellence to improve lives through cooperative governance. And of course, we want to lead the cooperative governance system in support of the integrated service delivery for a better life for all South Africans. And we do have some fundamental beliefs that actually are our guiding compass that will also ensure that we do then deliver on the strategic outcomes of the department. We could move to the next slide on our outputs, indicators, and targets and the budget allocations per program. In summary, Honorable Chairperson, we have 35 targets for this year. And you can see on the slide that they are divided or subdivided into the main programs within the department, with most of them sitting in our local government support and interventions management branch, and then followed then by the institutional development branch, and then administration, and then NDMC, and then CWP. I think what then also is very important here is that the local government program also then needs to then support all the interventions, and these are also reflected in the estimates of national expenditure for this year. If we then move to the next slide under the first program, and that is our administration program, we've got a number of outputs here, and the ones that are really important for us, firstly, are the annual financial statements, in that we need to ensure that we've got an improved audit opinion that will be expressed by the Auditor General. And we are aiming this year at minimum to have a qualified or better. We also then want to ensure that the corporate services has what we've called a corporate services improvement plan. And within this plan, we need to be able to demonstrate that we've made quite some significant progress. And within our corporate services plan, there's going to be a strong focus or emphasis just with regards to our IT elements. And we need to make certain that the plan that has been developed is implemented at least 90%. We also have an approved financial management plan. And in the approved financial management plan, we also want to ensure that we have within our reports between Q1 to 3, and all those that we then submit thereafter at the end of each quarter, that we want to ensure that we at least have 100% improvement on the financial management plan. And an example of some of the items that are sitting in the financial management plan specifically talk to our 30-day payment period. And we want to ensure that those are payment of invoices over, during every month. And we want to ensure that these are paid on time. So we're saying we're targeting a 90% implementation on the financial management improvement plan. When it actually then comes to reporting on the internal audit plan, we also want to ensure that we have 90% implementation of our internal audit plan. This plan is actually a plan that we develop over a 3-year rolling period, but we want to then ensure that whatever is in that internal audit plan is then indeed achieved by our auditors. Here we normally follow a hybrid approach where we also bring in some external expertise to assist us with the audits over the period. We also want to ensure that we report on investigated corruption cases. And here we're saying that our target is 90% of all cases must be reported and would have then been investigated for this particular year. If you then move over to the budget, within program 1, which is administration, this budget is 293,439,000. In this budget, you will find that most of the funding is really goes towards contractual obligations. And these contractual obligations, specifically, if you look at it, are around security and cleaning. And of course, there's quite a big portion of the budget that also goes towards office accommodation. And this is where we also have our ICT and our communication and just generally our human resources. The cost of employment makes up just over 50% of the total budget that has been allocated then for Program 1. What is also important to note is that if you look at Program 1 over the MTEF or over the 3-year period, you see that we gradually have a reduction over the period, simply because of some of the I beg your pardon for that. Okay, so you'll find that we've had a reduction over the 3-year period simply because we've been through the National Treasury advised that we've had to have some of our budget cuts. If I then move to the next slide, on the next program on local government support and interventions management, some of the key indicators that we need to meet here specifically relate to the district and the Metro 1 plans. These need to be developed for the 44 districts and the 8 metros during this year. The DDM framework itself also needs to contain a gender responsive indicator, and we want to ensure here that some of the targets are then aligned to the gender-based violence plan, and that indeed our targets are gender responsive. On the integrated monitoring framework for the DDM, we want to also ensure that this is developed and implemented during this current year. And then just with regards to the DDM IMS system itself, we are in the process of developing that. We want to ensure that we not only develop, but look at also implementation of the system. We also have a number of reports that we need to ensure that are aligned to our IDP and to the DDM1 plans. And these plans come from the municipalities themselves. And we want to ensure that we have one report that is actually then aligned across all the IDPs to the DDM1 plans that need to be developed by each of the districts. There are a number of reports on the integration of economic development plans that also need to be done through the plans. And this report itself, we need to ensure that it's not only integrated, but we also need to make sure that we have an economic development plan within each of the 1 plans per district. If we can move to the next slide. On 2.7, the indicator is that we need to have a number of hubs established for the districts and metros. We are targeting this year 21 districts. We all know that we have established the 3 hubs in the pilot areas of Waterberg, eThekwini, and the Eastern Cape. So for now of OR Tambo. So our next target this year is to look at the 21 districts. And these are mainly the 21 water districts, which are water services authorities. On the MIC allocations that need to be spent on the municipal infrastructure, our target here is to ensure that we've got 85% of our MIC allocations spent on municipal infrastructure. We also want to report on the priority water infrastructure projects that need to be identified, funded, and included into the DDM1 plans. So the reports on the priority water infrastructure projects would then need to also be identified and funded as part of the DDM1 plans and submitted. And this we're hoping to achieve by the middle of December this year. On the smart cities framework, for the 3 existing cities, they need to actually then be developed and included in the 1 plans. On the quarterly reports, on the implementation of the Section 139 improvement plans. We need to ensure that we've got 4 quarterly reports on the implement, make sure that we develop these within 1 month after the end of each of the quarters. From a monitoring and evaluation perspective, we want to ensure that, from a monitoring and interventions bill perspective, we need to ensure that we table this in Parliament by the 31st of March, 2022. If we could move to the next slide, please. Just with regards to the actual budget allocation for the program and its sub-programs, you will see that for 2021-22, that the total budget that's been allocated to local government support and intervention is at 17.1 billion. Of the 17.1 billion, we have over 90% towards transfers and subsidies. And the big portion of this is made up of the MIG grant, which is sitting at about 14.8 billion. And of course, what I think is critical here is that the municipalities need to ensure that they have business plans that are developed to demonstrate how they're actually implementing the MIG grants. And of course, the MIG grant itself is a conditional grant, which is specifically allocated for infrastructure development within the municipalities. On the actual operationalization or implementation of the various projects that are identified, we also do have MISA that can actually also support the municipalities where they are actually struggling to spend on their MIG allocations. If you also then just look at this program itself, is quite a big, the amount that's actually allocated, which makes up the goods and services and compensation of employees, is sitting at 128 million. And you will notice that in this program that you do see an increase of budget allocation from 2021 to 22 to 23, 24. And of course, it differs in the sense that if you look at the overall budget allocation for the department, but I will get to that at the end, you will see that we actually have a decline. So it's good just to note that on this program that we are maintaining an increase over the MTF period. If we then move to the next slide. Okay, so on the institutional development, we've got quite a few targets here. There's 9 of them. And the first one is that we need to ensure that we have a funding model for local government that has been developed and implemented in collaboration with National Treasury. We also then need to ensure that the municipal financial viability assessment is conducted, and that we also have an improvement tool that is developed and implemented. Can I ask perhaps that the presentation please be put into presentation mode? I'm sorry, I noticed that now. Thank you. And then just on the third target, there's a number of municipalities with the reduction of non-revenue electricity as a target in the SDPIBs. So we're targeting 52 municipalities who need to have a reduction of non-revenue electricity. And then the fourth target is that we need to have a number of municipalities with the reduction of non-revenue water as a target. And here we are targeting 144 municipalities. In order for us to be able to also provide necessary support to stakeholders in preparation for the local government elections, we are saying that we will report on and support the stakeholders that are needed to be supported for the local government elections during this year. Another target is that we will also integrate the local government capacity building strategy into the District 1 plans upon implementation. So we need to ensure that we have the integrated local capacity building strategy developed. The 7th target is that we need to report on the National Responsible Citizenry Campaign implementation. So this report will be then presented once we've also then ensured that we've conducted our engagement with the necessary stakeholders in 16 districts. The 8th target is that we need to have a number of impacts that are functional, and here we will then conduct 4 impact functionality reports, and we'll then developed. On the 9th target, we want to report on the implementation of some action in line with Section 134 of the MFMA. And here we want to then ensure that we are able to report on the implementation of the actions to address the issues that have been raised in line with Section 134 of the MFMA. If we can then move to the next slide on Program 3, which is institutional development. Which is still institutional allocated per program and sub-program. The total budget allocated here to institutional development is 78.4 billion. And as you can see, in the 22-23 year, it's allocated at 83.1 billion. And on the outer year, it's allocated as 83.4 billion. So most of the funding here is then transferred as an equitable share. And part of this 78.4 billion is also the MSIG grant, which is also then apportioned to assist municipalities. This is an indirect grant, and of course, we assist municipalities here to actually enhance some of their revenue issues that they may have. But of course, a bigger portion, sorry, not a bigger portion, but a part allocation here is also for the implementation of the DDM. If you look at this particular program, it actually looks to ensuring that our HR systems are properly implemented. We also look at the accreditation here, requirements, for the staff within municipalities. And of course, we also have the anti-corruption strategy that we have to develop to actually detect and prevent any corruption activities at the local level. If we then move on to the next slide on the National Disaster Management Center, here we have 4 targets. The first one is that we want to ensure that a number of municipalities in the priority disaster areas are supported to prevent, prepare, and mitigate disaster risks. And we are targeting 10 municipalities in these priority disaster areas. And we want to actually ensure then that we have the applicable disaster management plans that will actually also focus on all the hazards inclusive of COVID. The second target, we want to report on sector departments and we want to ensure that they're supported in the implementation of their disaster funding arrangements. And we will be targeting 2 sector departments for this year. We also, in the third target, want to ensure that the number of monitoring reports on disaster grant funding and expenditure, we are targeting 4 monitoring reports on disaster grant funding expenditure for this year. We also want to ensure that we have assessment reports indicating the number of priority national sector departments assessed and supported to implement the disaster management function. So the assessment reports that will indicate one priority, a national sector department assessed and supported through the disaster management function for this year. If we then move to the next slide on the budget allocation for this program and sub-programs. So in this program, there's an amount of 605 million that has been allocated in the 2021 year. And in the outer years, you'll see also a slight increase of 625 million and 628 million in total. The transfers and grants, transfers and subsidies mainly relate to the disaster relief grant. This is also an immediate grant, which is provided, which is then provided to the municipalities that are undergoing any disasters. So the program really focuses on the prevention of disasters and how it is that we can support the municipalities when they actually have to deal with disasters that may arise. We also do have professional services bodies that can also go out and assess damages, within the municipalities, and in order to also just assist municipalities with the disaster evaluation assessments and just to ascertain what are the losses or the damages that have been incurred and what are the costs that relate to these. If we then move to the next slide on the Community Works Program, here there are 3 targets for this year. We are continuing with the number of people who will be participating in the program. This is 250,000 people that we are targeting to participate. We also want to ensure that participants are trained annually, and the targeted number of participants will be 25,000. We also want to ensure that the new CWP model is developed, and we need to ensure that we also receive the necessary approval around the development of this target. If we then move to the budget that's been allocated for this program and its sub-programs, we have 4.2 billion that has been allocated. Over 90% of this allocation is related to the goods and services. And of course, as we all are aware, there's a great portion of it that is actually issued to the CW participants as a stipend, which then provides for an opportunity for our people to actually earn a living. But over and above that, they also then have an opportunity to learn new skills, and so that they are also developed. We also have the Agrarian project here, where we are supporting through the NPOs some farmers, just to ensure that we have these projects up and running. We are also having some arrangements or agreements with the NPOs. We also have partnered with the traditional leaders to ensure that these programs are then properly managed on the ground. So just with regards to the overall DCOG MTF budget allocations, you will see, if we move to the next slide, that even though you will see that we have an increase in the allocation over the MTF period from 100 billion to 106 billion and then 107 billion, it's important for the committee to note that on the compensation of employees, we have quite a significant reduction, which is from 352 million to 347 and then to 331. Of course, this will have an implication in terms of how it is that we then manage our capacity within the department. Of course, we would have to then put a strategy in place just in terms of how we then manage our headcount going forward. If you then look at goods and services, you also see that we do have a slight increase year on year in order for us to be able to then take care of all the goods and services issues, specifically around specifically around our issues of accommodation, our issues of travel, our issues of IT licensing, and also just ensuring that we are able to then, if you look at our greater portion of the budget, trying to ensure that we have our transfers and subsidies, which are then undertaken over the 3-year period. On transfers and subsidies, you will note that we do have a slight increase year on year, but of course we do find that we still do get some requests coming through, from our entities where there are still some funding challenges that we do have or experience. So, Chairperson, I would like to then, if I could end the presentation, recommend that the Select Committee then note the annual performance plan and the allocated budget for the 2021-22 financial year. And I'd like to thank the Chairperson and the honorable members.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it does help to give us a sense about the performance of the department and its future performance as elaborated in the APP, which is quite good, as well as the budget for the year, the work that the department from the cooperative governance point of view would like to do to attend to all those particular issues. Honorable members, over to you. Can I open this opportunity for us to interact with the plan and the budget? Let me see who wants to participate. Yes, I see the hand of Honorable Enoch Mtetwa, Honorable Shai, Honorable Sileku, Honorable Mikalakis. In that order, I propose that make your own reflections, your comments, and then if you have some questions to pose to the minister and the team, you are free to do so. Over to you, Honorable Enoch Mtetwa.
No, thank you, Chair. Am I audible enough? Hello?
You are, most definitely.
No, thanks, Chair. My question is in regard of 2 programs. The first program, Chair, it's around your program 1. Program 1, I noticed, Chair, that your compensation of employees actually for 2023-24, it has gone down up to a level of almost 83%. Can the DG explain to us as to how are they dealing with these payments? Is it because are they retrenching to maintain themselves since there's a cut down in that program? Or what plan do they have that that can sustain the department in terms of this cut down? The second one, Chair, is also the plan. I want to know what plan do they have in terms of the CPW, because this program is one of the programs that most of the time pushes COCTA to qualify audit. So for this time around, what plans are there to ensure that there is an improvement or in terms of this program? Those are the two, Chair, that I would like whoever comes in to explain to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mteto. Wonderful. Next one, Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you, Chairperson. And let me also take this opportunity to thank the Minister and the Department for the presentation. Chairperson, I do have a few questions. Just in terms of I think it's program 2, local government support and intervention management. I think with regard to the district development model, firstly, Chair, I think we should. Chairperson? Chairperson, as I was saying, with regard to the district development model, I think we should commend the inclusion of gender responsive targets and indicators in the district development model framework. And I think this will go a long way to responding to the gender-based violence and femicide crisis in the country, and as outlined in the National Strategic Plan. However, Chair, with regard to this, perhaps can the department also expand in terms of how will this target also filter down to municipalities? Chair, with regard to the MIG allocation spent on municipal infrastructure, we are aware of the challenges that municipalities have, especially with regard to maintaining infrastructure, but also in terms of dealing with aging infrastructure, which also requires serious interventions. And if we can get an indication what kind of resources or if there are sufficient resources to address this. But also we are aware that municipalities are not utilizing the MIG funding for its intended purposes. And how is the department also addressing this? Chair, with regard to, I think it's on slide 10, priority districts that are supported to improve water infrastructure. What I want to know is that which districts are being considered as priority districts, or if I'm not I'm not sure if I understood what the DG said, or whether this will only be determined once the district development model 1 plans are submitted, and that will only be done by the end of the financial year in terms of the time frame. And Chair, I think we should also note that the tabling of the monitoring and intervention bill by the 31st of March 2022 on slide 10. I think we've been discussing this bill over some time. And Chair, my final question, I think, is partly covered by Honorable Mteto around the community work program. But perhaps the department can give us more clarity on the new, and they use the word new, CWP implementation model, which will be developed and approved by the Minister by the 30th of September. Thanks, Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh. Honorable Sileku.
Good afternoon, Chair, and good afternoon to the Minister and to the Deputy Ministers and to the members of the NCOP and the officials. Chair, firstly, let me appreciate the presentation. And Chair, when you first started the meeting, you have asked that the department in their presentation should actually give us an indication of what has been achieved in the previous financial year and what their plans for the next financial 2 outer years is, which is what we got. But unfortunately, we lacked some detail when it came to what has been achieved and what has not been achieved. Because, Chair, what makes it difficult for me, I would go to program number 1, specifically when we talk about the report on investigation on corruption cases. So one would have loved to know, what was the target in the previous year, or whether this is a new target, because they are saying 90% of reported cases investigated. So I would like to know, like the department to expand more on this particular target and indicator to make sure at least what are they actually looking at, what has been their previous target pertaining to cases of corruption being reported, because we know local government is known for not having consequent management, and that's an outcry everywhere we go when we deal with municipalities. There is no consequent management, and for us to actually see whether we are actually moving in that direction or we are not moving at all, then at least the department would be able to let them elaborate on that one. And then, Chair, on the second one, in terms of the offices that the department is using, one would like to ask a question of clarity. How many offices is the department currently renting, if they are? And then if not, are they having their own offices, and how much are they paying, in these offices? Because what we tend to find is that the departments uses a lot of money in renting office space instead of planning for having their own offices. That is the second one, Chair. And Chair, less said about the DDM is the better for me. And then I will go to slide number 10. Chair, I see when we talk about the expenditure or the spending of the MIG allocation per municipality, we all know that some municipalities don't have the capacity to actually to be able to spend these grants, because our municipality are mostly urban, some are rural, some are in the metros. So, Chair, for me, if you say you would have 85% of the MIG allocation be spent by municipalities, and there is no capacity given to these municipalities, then, Chair, we are not going to make any movement in that regard. So I would also like the department just to expand and try to elaborate in terms of what are they going to do specifically to those municipalities that would love to spend these particular grants, but because of not having the capacity to spend these particular grants, because as well as MISA is there, we still find that some of the municipalities are not given the relevant and needed support so that they can actually spend these particular MIG grants so that our communities can actually have these services. Chair, when we go to slide number 12, talking about the report of NPACs functionality, I would also like the department just to elaborate, in terms of their target, in terms of 4 MPAC functionality assessment report developed. What is it that the department is looking for? And what is it that they would love to achieve? Because one of most of the issues that we encounter in local government currently when it comes to oversight bodies is the impact, the lack of teeth, of these particular structures. Because you'll find that in some municipalities, you'll find this impact belongs to the party that is in government. As a result, they don't play an effective oversight role. And then if we are going to continue in that way, Chair, where the player and the referee come from the same household, we are not going to see any change when it comes to consequent management. Can the department just elaborate in terms of what they are looking for when they're looking in terms of this functionality assessment? What will they be looking at? Chair, I see also in terms of slide 16, when it goes to CPW, Chair, what is so nice about being on the ground? These projects are not implemented, in Pretoria. They are implemented, on our local municipalities. And what you find in terms of these CPW projects that is currently implemented in our municipalities, you'll find that people don't work. People just sit under trees. They don't work at all. And one asks a question is that, are we really getting value for money when it comes to CPWP? And if we're not getting value for money. What is the department going to do forward, making sure that each and every program that is being implemented in these municipalities, that we do actually get value for money, and that these projects or programs are not used by politicians, to garner support for them, when it comes to their political, programs, because we have seen this happening in our municipalities. And also, Chair, can they just elaborate in terms of the target of 25,000 CPW participants trained annually by 31 March 2022? What is it that they're going to train them on? And what is the plan for, on people on CWP, the exit strategy, so that these people becomes employable at the end of the day? Because it's no use that you train people, and then at the end of the day, these people, when their program has come to an end, they are going to be sitting at home. So is the department looking at ways of making sure that if they train people so that people become employable? Thank you very much, Chair. I think that's where I'll stop for today. Thank you very much.
Okay. I'm going to sincerely implore members to remember that we still have other 2 presentations, and we are scheduled to be here until 5 o'clock. As much as we would love to engage, just bear that in mind. All right, thank you very much. Honorable Mikalakis will be followed by Honorable Fesser and Honorable Martha Bartlett.
Thank you very much, Chair. I only have one question, so the Honourable Seleku borrowed a bit of my time, which is not a problem at all. Chair, my question is with regards to the Monitoring and Intervention Bill. Now, last year when we received this briefing, there were talks as well of this bill being in the pipeline. But I want to ask, why is this not a priority, it seems, and what is the cause for the delay? And the reason why I'm asking this is because we see in this committee how important it is to have at least some guidelines with regards to interventions. It's the one mechanism that we have to ensure that municipalities who are failing are actually brought back to where it's supposed to be. But without having proper guidelines of how interventions should work, it actually currently renders the system ineffective, and people are losing faith in interventions. So I want to ask the department, why is it taking so long? A piece of legislation that's so important should actually be the #1 priority when it comes to your legislative agenda. And I also just want to ask, the bill that's being drafted, is there any provision being made currently in that draft that you have for minimum standards for administrators? Thank you very much, Chair.
All right, thank you very much, Honorable Mikalakis. Honorable Fesser.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I just want the department that in terms of the values, the vision and the mission of the department, by putting people and their concerns first, supporting the delivery of municipal services to the right quality and standard, and promoting good governance, transparency, and accountability, ensuring sound financial management and accounting. I'm concerned about the current trajectory of collapsing municipalities and would love to ask the following question. How will the department ensure implementation of the DDM, since all former plans of the department failed to ensure that all municipalities their basic responsibilities and functions consistently? And how will the department support the delivery of municipal services to the right quality and standard and promoting good governance? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Fesser. Honorable Bartlett.
Thanks, Honorable Chair. No, Chair, was covered by the previous speaker, especially Honorable Seleku and the other. I was just asking about the decline. I'm not just a program 2 or program 3, but they spoke about the decline. And then also to ask, I know they had their own plans for the migrants. But we can just speed up the process of migrant, because in some instances they said they are not using the migrant, and then municipalities are struggling, especially on infrastructure. So I just will look at it also, Chair. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honorable Bartlett. Just a comment from me. This year, in the next few months, we will be having elections, which means that out of those elections, there will be new councillors. The experience is that political parties bring in a lot of people without knowledge, experience of local government. And such people need to be taken through the process of orientation, of induction, and all of that. How ready is the department in respect to executing that function? Because for me, that is quite important. For me, part of the solution to resolving the issues of capacity at municipal level would be to ensure that once councillors are in, we take them through the laborious process of induction so that they know what their minimum responsibilities should be as councillors. Because if we fail to do that, the problems, in my view, in terms of local government, are going to perpetuate. We are not going to resolve them in a way that will help us to achieve these plans that are on the table. And linked to that, I don't know how, but it bothers me. What bothers me is the fact that political parties don't send people with the requisite skills, expertise, training, experience as councillors at the municipal level. And without interfering with what the political parties prioritize as to who should their candidates be, is it possible that the department can unfold some program to motivate, to encourage political parties as they select their councillors? They should select councillors with the requisite skills and expertise, and more importantly, with the right moral rectitude. For me, that is quite important. And I don't know, maybe we need some conversation around this particular matter and say, what role can the department play in the context of the fact that it cannot interfere in what the political parties are doing, but at the same time, we are caught into that situation whereby we need people who are not going to collapse the already embattled sphere of government. That, for me, that is the question. But other than that, I think the presentation is very well good, is very good, is well understood, is well received. Only if the department can implement its intentions and its plans in terms of what is before us, I think that is going to be good. And that as a committee, we will continuously interact with all the issues as raised by the department throughout the year, whether it's DDM, is the bill, the monetary and intervention bill, whether it is CWP, which was a problematic program in the past that led to the department receiving not good audit outcomes. And for me, if we line up our plans in terms, our program as a committee, in line with what is on the table here, it can help us to engage and interact more with the department and monitor the department and exercise our oversight function accordingly in a way that will ensure that we impact in what the department is doing. With that, I think it's okay. Can we get some responses? Over to you, Honorable Minister, and the Deputy Minister is here and can also assist as such. Over to you, Honorable Minister.
Chair, I thought I'll allow the officials first.
All right, no problem. Over to you, DG. The minister will come last.
No, thank you so much, Honorable Chair. I am joined by all the leads on each of the programs. So we can start out by getting the DDG for program 1 to respond first to his questions. And once we've gone through all the programs, then I would then come in if there are still some additional points that need to be made. Thank you, Chairperson. So I'd like to hand over to the first DDG on program 1. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, honourable members. Good afternoon, Minister. The question on program 1 related to the reduction in the budget for compensation of employees. You will note if you look at the budget for the department as a whole that there's been a significant reduction for compensation of employees over the MTF period. And we're going to try to apply the majority of that reduction in program 1, as we would prefer not to reduce capacity in our core branches even further. So the only way we can really do this is to automate business processes, so we rely less on staff members, but we will not be doing this through retrenchments. There are a number of vacant posts that we will be unfunding, and all it means that over the next 3 years, when posts do become vacant, that we will not be filling them, so that we will be scaling down on the actual compensation of employees in this program. I don't think there was any other question related to program 1. And then DG, I don't know if I should respond to the CWP questions now or at the end. Thanks.
It's good if you can go ahead, please, Peter. You can respond to the CWP question.
Thank you. Then there were a number of questions related to the CWP. I think the first one was from Honourable Mtetu related to the findings. Since last year, the DG introduced weekly meetings of all the key staff, and those meetings have really resulted in a significant improvement, specifically in the areas, the one related to advances made to NPOs that were unaccounted for. At the beginning of the previous financial year, it was 237 million. We brought this down, so at the beginning of this financial year, it was 62 million. So it's still work in progress, but there's been a significant improvement in that area. This was one of the areas of concern of the Auditor General. We've also reassigned responsibilities in the branch to introduce more capacity in key areas. That's an ongoing process. But we have removed some of the functions that are not critical and have asked officials to rather focus on improving our program and project management over the branch at all. The AG so far has been satisfied with the progress that has been made on addressing the material irregularities, and that I'm confident if we continue on the current path that we will be able to get rid of most, if not all, of the critical findings related to the CWP during the current financial year. I think we would have addressed quite a significant portion of them already in the previous financial year, and that is a process that's continuing. And then on the question from Honourable Sheikh on the CWP model, we have already made a few small changes to how we implement the model, in particular how we deal with the financial matters related to the NPOs. But the bigger questions relate to, and this also relates to the other question that was asked, relates to the usefulness of the work that's being done, as well as the training that participants are undergoing. As far as the work packages are concerned, at the moment, that is primarily determined by local referencing committees. So the department does not dictate the type of work that has to be done. So local referencing committees, representatives from the local community, from the local municipality, traditional authorities where applicable, are normally involved in the reference committees, and they decide how these work packages are designed. What we are planning to do in the future is to make sure that we align the CWP work to the DDM and particularly then to the one plans in each district, so that we make sure that the CWP work directly supports and complements what we intend to achieve in terms of the DDM in the different districts. Training as well, we are looking at ways of improving how we procure training, but also to be more prescriptive in the types of training that needs to be undertaken. We are also in our how we see the model evolving in the future, going to have much stronger partnerships with government entities, government agencies, such as the Small Business Development Agency, the National Youth Development Agency, since those entities have the ability to exit or transition people into more useful or more permanent self-employed options. So it is going to be necessary for us because the department in itself does not have a mandate or funding to fund small businesses on a sustainable basis. So the CWP can only fund the stipends paid to participants. So it's essential for us that we partner with those government agencies and entities that have the ability then to transition people out of temporary work like the CWP and into more sustainable options. So that I think answers in part also the question by Honorable Seleku. Then there was a question related to the renting of offices. We currently spend approximately 4.4 million rand a month or 53 million a year on renting 4 offices. We are in the process. We've already been in consultation with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, and they have identified a site to construct a government-owned property for the department, for the whole family of departments. So that would include Department of Traditional Affairs, MISA, etc. This project is likely to take a while, probably over the next 5 to 6 years. In the interim, the department is seeking to consolidate its offices into one office space, and we are finalizing the tender process with the Department of Public Works and Infrastructure, which would also reduce the expenditure on office space. Also, with the new working arrangements that emerged due to the COVID pandemic, it's clear that we do not require the amount of office space that we currently have, which in future will then also result in a saving. Chairperson and honorable members, I hope that answered all the questions. Thank you.
All right. Any other outstanding?
Thank you. Yes, there are, Chairperson. We'll then move on to program 2, and Themba Forsi will respond to those questions.
Thank you, DG, and good afternoon to the Minister and Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members and my colleagues. The first set of questions, Honorable Chair, is from Honorable Member Sheikh on the issue of the target on the GBV indicators. And the question is how we're going to ensure that it filters down to municipalities all this way. I think the target, the way it's currently crafted, is to ensure that in the planning processes, the targets that are set in the GBV programs from the Department of Women, that is informing overall the approach that government must take. Those targets and indicators from our side, we include them in the IDP guidelines that must inform how municipalities plan for them, but also in the DDM framework, which will require that municipalities, these are not just targets that are additional or over and above what is expected of them, but it's included and mainstreamed in their planning processes and budgeting processes. And then they can be also held accountable based on those set of indicators. And these are indicators that, Honorable Chair, are not just for local government. All the spheres, national, provincial, also have a concrete set of indicators that they are expected to account on as it relates to implementation of overall government GBV program. So we'll be including these indicators also from our side in the IDP guidelines. and ensure that municipalities, they incorporate them in their budgeting and implementation processes. The question was also on the MIG. How is MIG going to be addressing the challenges of aging infrastructure? And the Honorable Sheikh is correct that this is the major challenge that we have as a country. We have focused on building new sort of infrastructure. What is emerging very clearly is that municipalities, for a variety of reasons, have not been able to maintain even the new infrastructure that was provided by the new government. So it is a challenge that across the country is facing many municipalities. What we have done for this year, we have amended the MIG framework to ensure that firstly, there's ring-fenced 5% that is going to focus on assisting municipalities to build their asset management plans on how they are actually going to be responding to addressing their infrastructure challenges. But there's also a 10% that also has been ring-fenced for repairs and maintenance. And this approach, it provides municipalities with an ability now to start planning appropriately in terms of their long-term infrastructure plans, but also ensuring that they've got plans of how they're going to maintain these assets, but they're able to also have funding to respond to the immediate challenges around repairs and maintenance. The priority water, which is the other question, the priority infrastructure project, the approach that we have done an assessment working with MESA on the districts that have sort of underground water. And in terms of targeting, there's about 8 provinces that will be focusing on to look at those districts that have challenges of drought, but also those districts that have a potential of underground water, to ensure that we will not only just focus on big infrastructure projects, but we can also focus on small scale sort of schemes that assist in terms of improving access of water to these communities. Related to MIG also, it's a question around the what are we going to do with the capacity to lack of capacity of municipalities to spend the grant. Already within the MIG framework, there's a 5% that municipalities are allocated to actually appoint project management units. And the issues that we need to look at, firstly, how do we strengthen the utilization of that 5% and ensure that the right people are recruited to provide support to municipalities in terms of coordinating the whole infrastructure chain, including building capacity for maintenance. So that 5%, I think it's one sort of measure that already is provided for. But over and above that, MESA is also providing capacity support engineers to municipalities, those that are struggling. And we have prioritized those municipalities that are struggling to spend with the improvement plans on how to improve their spending and deliver of infrastructure. The Honorable Sheikh, you also asked a question on the MCBL, and also Honorable George Mikalakis. I think the issue of the MCBL, we have passed now some of the hurdles that were there that delayed the bill. We are currently undertaking consultative processes with roadshows led by Deputy Minister to engage with the provinces and also municipalities. And the target is that at least by June, we should have concluded the consultation, and then the bill will be ready to be introduced and tabled in cabinet if Cabinet is happy with the bill, then we will then follow the legislative process in terms of introducing it to Parliament for processing. And that bill also provides for the proper guidelines on interventions, but also the question that was asked by Honorable George, whether there's any sort of minimum standards set for administrators. It actually provides for creation of a database of administrators at a national level, which even provinces can draw from in terms of the interventions that will be invoked at that level. But the database will be informed, of course, then by a clear set of minimum standards in terms of the competences that these administrators that will be in the national database should have. The other question, the last question, was from Honorable Karen Fesser on the how are we going to address the collapsing municipalities to ensure that we improve governance, financial management, and so on. So the DDM, firstly, the approach to DDM whilst focusing on ensuring that we assist these districts to develop clear long-term sort of developmental plans, but we also focus at the same time on the municipalities themselves in terms of understanding the approach that we're taking is to do an assessment of the implementation capability in these municipalities, to look at what skills are there, what capacity exists in terms of systems and processes, whether it's financial management, it's infrastructure delivery, and so on. And it will assist us to then, through the DDM, be able to coordinate all the capacity building programs and support that is provided to these districts in a targeted way, informed, of course, by a clear assessment that is done in terms of understanding what the challenges are, whether it's on infrastructure, on financial management, and all the sort of key performance areas. What the MC bill also, in addition, will also reinforce this process. The MC bill puts the principle of monitoring and support as a requirement before you can even consider interventions. So it will affirm the Section 154 support as a requirement to ensure that we were able to focus in a targeted way on how we support those sort of municipalities in distress to address some of the key challenges. But of course, we can administratively focus on the areas that are within the ambit of the legislation and so on. But we'll need to also look at how we address some of the political and administrative instability that also is a trigger to a number of these challenges. Chair, I think those were the questions that were in my area. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. DG, we're still having a long way to go if your speakers not taking away quality and others. Just be mindful of time.
Okay. No,
Yes,
apologies for that, Chair. We just do have one more person to speak, and it's Dr. Nkashe from the ID branch. If you'd allow him, please, Chair, and then I can then just do a quick wrap up before Minister comes in. Thank you.
Thank you, DG, honorable members, Minister, and colleagues. I've got a problem with my camera, so it's not reflecting, but I'm going to respond on the question which were asked about the corruption. How do we fight corruption as a department? What I can state now is that in the collaboration with the Hawks and the SIU, the department are currently investigating 314 cases, of which 80 of them are currently in court, and then 173 cases are under investigations, and then the 61 cases have been referred to the NPA for decision making, whether to prosecute or not to prosecute. So this, it comes from the relationship that we have with the Hawks and SIU, as the department is forming part of the anti-corruption task team. So the department is a member there, and then it's represented by myself. And then also we are having cases that we are investigating under Section 106. Under review, we referred 16 cases to provinces for investigations, whereas on our database currently we have 160 cases of forensics that we normally do. We analyze them. After we receive them from the province, we analyze, and then we see the value of it, whether they require further investigation or maybe we can close those cases because of non-availability of evidence. But where there is information that is justifiable to further investigation, then we'll refer them to either the Hawks or to the SIU. But currently we have referred 18 to the Hawks to investigate, and also we had other cases, 12 that is being referred to SIU to assist us in the investigations for that particular programs. And then the other issue that we are also doing to how do we prevent corruption and fraud in local spheres is that we are having a local anti-corruption government strategy that we roll out into all the municipalities, in the 257 municipalities, including metros. And then currently we are in the process of reviewing the impact of the rollout that we did. And then we are still analyzing the data that we collected from the municipalities. And also we also roll out, we form part of the National Anti-Corruption Strategy, whereby our strategy was also incorporated into the bigger strategy of the country. So we also train the councillors or the officials in the municipalities about that particular information to advise them how to prevent and detect corruption in their workspace. And we also, by enforcing the fight against corruption and fraud in municipalities, we have formed a structure with the Ethics SA and Moral Regeneration, which is called Local Government Ethics Leadership, and then it's chaired by Reverend Pastor Mukashwa. Then we have an MOU with them. And then the other forum that we are currently establishing, and that we might establish soon, is the Local Government Anti-Corruption Forum that we are forming with the SIU, whereby the purpose of the forum is to, we have invited all the provinces to form the part of it, because we have a committee whereby we invited all provinces to be part of it as we started establishing it, and also to have representation from each and every province. For us, when we investigate, then we can share information easily. And the forum that we form with the SIU, it will be our depository, whereby we'll all put all cases that we receive from provinces to the SIU, and the SIU will be the ones that they bring it back to report to the department. We want to make that relationship to make things easier for us. And then we have another forum that also, actually the MOU that we are entering into with the Hawks, whereby we would like to introduce each and every structure of anti-corruption or any unit that investigate corruption from local municipalities or in the province, from the office of the premier and also from the local government, that they should be introduced to the provincial Hawks in the country. So we are busy with that particular MOU that we are also compiling currently, still in the process. That will be making matters easy for us after the colleagues in local spheres have opened the case, then they can know where to get feedback from, rather than them submitting reports and then they don't get feedback from the Hawks after that. They only see them when somebody's been arrested. So what we are doing that to get a relationship whereby we can inform the minister upfront about what is happening in the municipalities, and then what is happening about the officials in the local spheres, and also them to inform the MECs and the premier in the province about the situations of corruptions in the local spheres. And then the other one is we are forming another MOU with financial intelligence. The purpose thereof is that currently we're experiencing that we cannot be proactive. So by virtue of that, we'll be sharing the information with financial intelligence of every member in local government. So as we can keep on profiling members, doing the financial audit of each and every member, rather than waiting for a member to commit a serious crime and then we start saying we are investigating. So with that method, actually we'll be reducing the way of spending money to investigate, rather than taking lesser time to do our investigation or identifying the risk in advance. So those are the issues that we are currently busy with in the department. And if I can give a status of each and every province, is that Western Cape has 58 cases and 13 is in court, and then under investigation is 27, and Eastern Cape is 54 cases, 20 in court, and then 27 currently under investigation. And then Northern Cape, 18 cases, 7 in court, 11 under investigations. Also Free State, we have 22 cases there, and then 10 is in court, and then 6 is under investigation. And then the KZN, we are having 33, and then 4 is in court. And then I don't have other provinces here, but other provinces are a little bit lower than what we are having here. But the total of cases that we have under operational clean audit is 314. So those are the cases that we are working closely with DPCI, which is the Hawks, SIU, and also with the NPA, because they are sharing the cases that are in court to abreast the minister about what is happening in the local spheres. So Chairperson, those are the information on the anti-corruption. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. DG, is that all?
Thank you, Chairperson. And perhaps just to wrap up, the members' observations are correct around our budget allocation, specifically around the cost of employment being reduced over the MTF by National Treasury. It's just to mention that this has been a mandatory reduction that was actually imposed on all departments. And of course, the process is also then wanting to really ensure that we re-look at our budgets from a staffing perspective. And of course, we're going to have to certainly look at how it is that we can manage this through natural attrition. But we certainly are not looking at retrenchment at this particular point. And then maybe, Chair, just to mention on the functionality of the impacts, we are in collaboration with National Treasury and SALGA to support us in the way that they conduct their work. And we've also made a specific provision in the structures bill in order for us to be able to regulate the impacts and how they perform their functions. And then just the last one on the actual councils themselves, building their capacity. The intention is to actually then specifically roll out an induction program And this we will be doing together or in collaboration with the National School of Government and also with SALGA. Thank you, Chair. I'll leave it at that to save time.
All right, thank you very much. Over to you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for all the questions and comments from the honourable members of the Select Committee. Most of the questions and comments have been commented on by the officials, but maybe I just want to say something on the CWP. I think the observation of members that the CWP workers in many areas don't really do much work is correct. And it has been my observation and our observation too. It is for that reason that we are saying we should redesign the CWP, because at the moment, the CWP is actually not run by the department, it's run by the NPOs. And the training has to be done by NPOs. So it doesn't matter what numbers we put, the NPOs will have to be the ones that do the training. They are the ones who actually decide which projects the CWP people get involved in. So that is the reason why we're saying it should be redesigned, so that we can indeed train the CW people and get them to get portable skills that they can exit the program and allow other people to come in. But also that in the design of the programs that they do, they must also contribute to the improvement in the community, whether it's paving of roads, whether it's fencing, whether it's, things that the communities also need. So because of time, I'll leave it at that, but I just thought I should add that to what the officials have said. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Honourable Minister. I indicated, and I think this should be one of the way forward, that based on that, what the department will be doing, we are going to follow it up throughout the year in terms of engagement with the department. I think it suffices. Let's go to the next presentation on the traditional affairs. And once more, whilst they are preparing, without taking quality and prescribing, I'm just mindful of the time. If we can just take about 20 minutes presenting so that we afford more time to members of parliament to engage. And thereafter we do MISA in that way, yes. Over to you, Honourable Minister, once more. You can start just prefacing the input before the presentation.
Thank you. I think we should just go straight to the presentation to save time. Thank you.
All right, no, thank you very much. Over to you, DG.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair, honourable members of the committee, the Honourable Minister, colleagues who are in the meeting as well. The presentation on the annual performance plan of the Department of Traditional Affairs for 2021-22. That's the outline that we have there. So I'll just ask that we go to the next slide so that we deal with the details. Just perhaps a key point to capture there is that this is the annual performance plan of the department, which was tabled in Parliament on the 15th of March 2021. The next slide, please. This slide just captures the vision and mission and values of the department. Our vision is that of a community development oriented institution of traditional leadership, and that we want to see in place a traditional affairs governance system which is in support of cooperative governance for an improved quality of life of South Africans. And those are the values that inform and shape our work. Honourable Chairperson, I will not go through them. The next slide, please. On this next slide, then just we indicate that we will now look at the actual performance plan itself, the outcomes, outputs and outputs indicators and annual targets. If you go to the next slide. We start with the first program, which is administration. Next slide. What we have done in our annual performance plan, Chairperson, we have come up with two management plans. One that looks at organizational compliance and performance issues that we have to attend to. And we have listed all of them, and we call it the Organizational Performance Information Compliance Management Plan. And we list all the things that need to be done under administration and governance, under Program 1, administration, to make sure that there's good governance in the organization. And we say that targets in that plan need to be achieved, and we shouldn't go even below 80% of those targets. We've done the same with those that relate to financial management. So we've got what we call a corporate and financial management compliance plan. In it, we list all the things that need to be done. So if you think about issues, for example, like payment of suppliers within 30 days. So instead of listing them individually as targets, we've listed them as part of a bigger plan for corporate and financial management. And we say that there must be compliance, and in terms of the achievement of targets, there we mustn't go below 80%. So that's for Program 1. The next slide will then take us to the next program, which is research, policy, and legislation. Take us to the next slide, please. So the first departmental outcome that this program contributes to is that of a functional institution of traditional and Khoisan leadership. Previously, what we have continued to do, Honorable Chairperson, is we've continued to monitor the issue of disputes in traditional leadership across provinces. We will then get reports from provinces, and in some of the instances we will be required to intervene ourselves. Now, this time around, because we now know that the legislative gap that was there in the sector has been closed with the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act coming into operation on the 1st of April. We said that what we are now going to do is to go look very closely at selected kinships and queenships and see how these disputes arise, how they are dealt with, what blockages they are facing. And the reason here is to use a provision later in the Act, which says the minister may issue regulations in terms of particular sections of the Act, so that based on those experiences, we may come up with tighter regulations that the minister may issue to guide how the issues of succession are being dealt with. Because at the moment, the way they are being dealt with, the Act says that it is the royal family that decides. But at the time when decisions of succession have to take place, there are all sorts of problems that are taking place. So we're saying that by looking closely at what is happening inside the royal families around these issues, we can then shape the regulations that the minister may issue to make sure that there's a tighter regulatory regime, obviously still respecting customary law and customary practice, but assisting to make sure that it facilitates the process much smoother. So it is that part, and if you look at the next target there, then it's that of the actual regulations that get developed out of that process. The next slide, please. The next slide, still on the functional institution of traditional leadership. One of the issues that emerged last year when there was a dialogue on women in traditional leadership convened by the National House of Traditional Leaders. One of the issues raised there was that what we need to understand better what is it that happens in our institutions at local level. So if you look at the act that is in place now, in terms of that act, local houses get established, local houses of traditional leaders get established in terms of Section 50. Now, we have been saying, what are the actual experiences on the ground in terms of the establishment of these local houses. Different provinces following different processes around the establishment of local houses. We need to regulate this. And it links to the earlier issue about regulations this time around. And we're saying based on an understanding of what is happening on the ground when provinces establish local houses of traditional leaders, we need to emerge with the information that can shape the regulations once again, so that the minister can regulate the manner in which the establishment of local houses take place. The next slide, please. Yes, now this is the issue I was referring to earlier about women in traditional leadership. There was a strong view expressed there last year when we had what was otherwise a very successful dialogue on women leadership in traditional leadership, that there are women in traditional leadership who have fought very difficult struggles, and some of them have come out as successful, others continue to struggle. Why are those experiences not documented? And what we need to do here, we need to conduct research on the struggles of women in traditional leadership and make sure that those struggles are documented, but don't just limit to women, extend it also to the struggles faced by people with disabilities, and so that this can be documented with the intention of using that information for shaping capacity building programs and intervention programs going forward. So that is a research project that we'll be embarking on during the course of this year. Next slide, please. This one is also a research study in our engagement with the institution of traditional leadership. A concern was raised that there is this area that they call the cultural and heritage economy. And their concern is that this cultural and heritage economy in traditional communities does not seem to benefit those communities adequately. If you take the example of customary initiation, for example, there are certain economic activities, certain products that get purchased in large quantities that are in support of the customary practice of initiation. Who are we purchasing this from? Who is benefiting in this economy that is linked to the cultural practice? When we talk about cultural attires, for example, and we say, as Amandebele, this is the clothing for Amandebele, who is involved in the value chain of making sure that that attire is made available and is being purchased and so on and so on? Because the institution of traditional leadership believes that if we understand that value chain better, we can find a way in which we can intercept it and ensure that the process are directed to the traditional communities, and through training and support, people in those communities can actually be part of the value chain of the cultural and heritage economy. Next slide, please. Okay, now this one looks at the issue of information management. One of the things that we did this past year was to come up with an information management framework on the sector, because we're saying that there must be a consistent set of information that we know and collect regularly about the sector. We discussed that with provinces, they help shape that framework, and so that becomes the basis on which we collect regularly information across the provinces on the sector. And we are indicating here that one of the things which where we have a good opportunity now that the institution raised concerns about in the past was about the participation of traditional leaders in municipal councils. Now, with the Traditional and Question Leadership Act coming into effect, it has also replaced Section 81 of the Municipal Structures Act. So there's a new Section 81, which is much more elaborate and talks more about the participation of traditional leaders in municipal affairs. Before it was amended, Chairperson, there were a lot of things that were deferred to MECs, that the MEC will issue a notice that determines the nature of the participation and so on and so on. The actual revised Section 81 now deals with those issues and provides better guidance in terms of that. So as part of the monitoring process, collection of information on the sector based on the information management framework that we have developed, that's one of the areas that we'll be looking at, so that we are always having up-to-date information on what is happening in the sector as a whole. Next slide, please. And then this takes us to the next program, program 3, which is institutional support and coordination. If you could go to the next slide. And there we start with an outcome there called transformed institution of traditional leadership. So one of the first things there that we'll be looking at is the monitoring the participation of traditional leadership in the promotion of social cohesion as a critical role that they have to play, and we'll be using the houses of traditional leaders as entry points to make sure that we monitor their participation and identify areas where they have challenges and identify areas where there are experiences where there can be cross-fertilization between provinces when it comes to the institution of traditional leadership promoting social cohesion. Obviously, a very useful aspect there are those areas that we reflect on the left-hand side, that this will include aspects such as fighting gender-based violence and femicide, fighting substance abuse, and so on, which are the activities that the National House promotes. Next slide, please. And in this area, then we're looking at the issue of initiation practices. I think we're very encouraged, Chairperson, by the manner in which the Parliament, particularly this committee, has assisted us to spearhead the finalization of the customary initiation bill. But now, in its absence, whilst we still have a legislative gap, the approach that we have here is that of ensuring that there are awareness-raising campaigns on customary initiation that are run across all provinces, which makes sure that they help provinces to be better prepared in terms of their readiness for initiation seasons. And then linked to that, obviously, we'll be using, in the absence of the Act, we have initiation guidelines, policy guidelines, and those policy guidelines will be the basis on which we work with provinces on the issue of customary initiation. But we do indicate there, of course, that once the Customary Initiation Act comes into effect, Chairperson, you asked this question, what is our state of readiness? I mean, one of the things that the Minister has already done, the Customary Initiation Bill says that the Minister must appoint a National Initiation Oversight Committee. And in anticipation of the bill coming into an act, the Minister has already started communicating with the stakeholders identified in the bill to say to them, when this bill becomes law, you will be expected to nominate people that will serve in this committee, and that committee then will begin to drive a number of things. So that communication between the Minister and those stakeholders has already started to make sure that as soon as the bill becomes an act, we then don't start from scratch. We are able to constitute the National Initiation Oversight Committee as a matter of urgency. The next slide. And the next slide, it's focusing on the district development model. The approach that we took this past year was that the institution of traditional leadership is a very critical role player at local level. So when you talk about the district development model, they must be on board. And so the question that was asked was, but how do they then play a role? So this past year, Chairperson, we developed a set of guidelines on the participation of local houses in the district development model. And those have been workshopped, they've been presented to the National House as well. And they firstly explain what the district development model is based on the work that our colleagues in DCOC have done. And then secondly, they say, given your vantage point as traditional leaders, this is how you can actually play a meaningful role in the district development model, including such functions as when one plan is being developed, it must be informed by the needs of the communities on the ground. And as traditional leaders, there's a particular angle from which you understand the needs of your communities. Even when implementation takes place, it can't just be that there will be reports that are written that says a bridge has been built, when traditional leaders on the ground can be able to inform the monitoring process and say, no, we see these things and they are happening. So during the course of this year now, it's basically using those guidelines and working very closely with all the local houses and ensuring that we support mobilize them for their participation in the district development model. Linked to that is this section 24 of the Traditional Khoisan and Leadership Act. That section, Chairperson, allows traditional councils to enter into partnerships with local government, provincial government, national government, the private sector, development agencies, all of them. And previously there was a concern that this is an area that is loosely formulated in legislation, which has gaps in terms of possibility, risks of corruption, and so on and so on. This act now, it's much clearer around this partnership so that they can benefit the communities. And we say that we'll be working with the provinces here to make sure that this section of the act is taken advantage of and is leveraged for purposes of partnerships that can develop communities on the ground. Next slide, please. And then this slide then just talks about the Agrarian Revolution program, which was piloted in the past. Some experiences were learned on the Agrarian Revolution. And now we are saying that this program has to be promoted across the provinces in traditional communities to make sure that they lead to food security, they improve the quality of lives of communities in those environments. We have entered into a memorandum of agreement with our counterparts, the Department of Agriculture, Land Reform and Rural Development, through which partnership then they will be able to work with us and the sector so that they can support communities at local level for purposes of the promotion of these kinds of projects. Obviously linked to this will be what the minister mentioned around Invest Rural Master Plan, which has been launched by the National House of Traditional Leaders. And one of the critical elements of the Invest Rural Master Plan is the issue of agriculture in traditional communities. At the moment, there is a process around communal land tenure policy where our colleagues in agriculture, land reform and rural development have come up with a draft policy under the auspices of the interministerial committee chaired by the Deputy President, which seeks to address this matter that has been hanging for a long time. What kinds of land tenure rights do people living in communal land have? And so we are saying here that because there has to be consultations throughout the year, culminating in a land summit on communal land, we will then have to mobilize the traditional leadership to make sure that they provide their voice in the processes of developing the communal land tenure policy. This have already started. Consultations have started with the National House and Contralesa, and there are follow-ups that are being planned, and there's also consultations that have taken place with the National COI and Sun Council. So that is what this target is about, Chairperson. The next one. And this next one here is about the functionality of local houses of traditional leadership. We believe that the local houses of traditional leadership are actually the hub of the operations, because they're there at local level. They need to be functional and as a result also play their role in development at a local level, including in the district development model, because they are at equivalent of a district. So what we're saying we'll do here is to just use a list of criteria of functionality for local houses, because those are there in the Act. And we want to say, are they constituted the way they are supposed to be constituted? Do they meet as often as they are supposed to meet? All those kinds of elements of functionality that are included in Section 50 of the Act, and we'll be monitoring that so that where there are gaps, we are able to identify those gaps and propose interventions to support the functioning of local houses. Next slide. And this slide then just talks about capacity building. So I did mention the issue of gender-based violence and femicide. It's a very critical area that the National House focuses on. And we're saying that there has to be ongoing work in this area because it also contributes to nation building and social cohesion. But what is happening in this area as well, what we'll be focusing on, which has started this previous year, we work in partnership with the local government SETA to develop a an induction manual for traditional leadership, taking into consideration this new piece of legislation. So the focus is going to be on the rollout of that induction program for the institution during the course of this financial year to make sure that the necessary capacity is created as required by this new piece of legislation. Now, if we can go to the next slide, that will then take us to our budget allocations. Please just move on to the next slide again. So this slide just then shows a summary of the budget that we have as a department. On the extreme left, it shows the different programs that we have: administration, research, policy and legislation, institutional support and coordination. The next part just shows the audited outcome for those years that are reflected there. And we are pleased to report to the committee that we have been able to obtain clean audits during these periods that we are reporting on. The extreme right then shows the allocations that is covered by this plan. So it will show that the total budget there is 171,392,000, split according to those three programs, and that goes up to 175,179 million in the outer year 2023-2024. The bottom part of that slide just shows the same information, but according to economic classification, perhaps just to draw the attention of the honorable members of the committee to the section on transfers and subsidies, which shows that there's 46 million rand more or less annually. That is a transfer from the department to the CRL Rights Commission. So out of that total budget of 171 million, 46 million of that more or less is a transfer to the CRL Rights Commission. And the next slide, we just showing this split of this information in terms of a pie chart for the economic classification. We can pass this one. And that's the last slide, Chairperson, where we are recommending to the committee that they note and support the DTA's 2021-22 annual performance plan and the allocations that are contained in the presentation. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Without further ado, let me invite members of parliament to interact with the presentation. Let me see hands. I see Baba Enoch Mtetwa. Is that only one hand? Okay, let's proceed. Honorable Enoch Mtetwa, over to you.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I just want to commend especially the issue of the traditional leaders, that now they've sorted out that bill where it was loose open, especially in terms of contract, that they can go and sign local contract and with the investors in their area, because that area was having a potential, Chair, to have some disastrous, because you can imagine if they go overseas and they also take agreement on behalf of a certain land in their position. I've read that, and I'm also keen to say that that is much better now. Thank you very much, Chair. I'm done, Chair.
Yes. Oh, yes. I had not. I had moved myself. I don't see any other hand. I want to make a contribution. Firstly, I think this is very good in terms of what the department seeks to do for this financial year. I have some few issues that I want to raise. Firstly, the conflicts within the traditional councils, your 40-60 composition. Largely, my experience is that these tensions and conflicts arise as a result of the fact that traditional leaders, no, not traditional leaders, traditional councils, that is this component of the community, is not properly elected. And in some provinces, they use other agencies, including the IEC, to proclaim the elections and conduct the elections for the traditional councils, the 40% component. I find this very, very useful in order to ensure that, firstly, the process to appoint the councils are democratic, they are fair, but secondly, and that people with good intentions stand for the elections and therefore they are elected. And in terms of this program, I don't see how the department seeks to collaborate with provinces to ensure that where these elections are taking place, they assist so that this component of the traditional councils are people who are properly elected and therefore they are properly constituted. That is the first point that I want to raise. I'm sure DG can respond on that. The second point is in respect of the customary initiation bill or the act now. When it was passed last year, there were a lot of concerns, and I'm happy that you saying that the minister is engaging with the different players to ensure that that body is in place to ensure that it advises the minister accordingly and it takes this particular process forward. But one of the issues which were raised at the time was the fact that we need to publicize it. We need to ensure that we go out to the affected communities and ensure that we teach them, because this dispensation, which came as a result of the Customary Initiation Act, is now going to comply with the Constitution. And we all know what was happening before when this was happening, and that there were a lot of deaths that are happening there, a lot of cases of hospitalization, and that those who were doing this were not registered, were not even registered. And this act seeks to ensure that all those particular aspects are covered. And my point is, I don't see how the department intends in precision to ensure that they proliferate the training and the capacity of communities so that this act must get the necessary prominence. It must be well known and it must be followed and observed, especially by those who are affected by the law itself. Because to register and to be compliant in terms of the law, it takes some time and it must be done in a way that is proper and respect the affected communities as such. And I don't see how you intend doing this. Other than that, I think this is okay. This is an area that I think we need to follow as well during this year so that we engage properly with the department and then deal with the issues. But lastly, before I forget it, the introduction of the San and Khoi Traditional Leadership Act, it's also an issue for me, because I think we need to ensure that the necessary capacity is there in terms of the implementation of this particular legislation. Now, in Pretoria, I'm not sure, but a month ago, and I was told that these people have been there at the Union Building, at the seat of our capital. They represent the San and the Khoi communities, and they are even planting some of the grasses, trees, and other things in Pretoria. I just want to know, are these people still there? If so, why can't we embark on a process to ensure that we engage with them in order to ensure that whatever issues that they raise are addressed, or we find some suitable and amicable solution to the problems that are affecting them? Because my information is that They have been there for a very, very long time, and my view is that we need some sort of intervention to address this particular issue. I mean, if they are still there at the Union Building in our capital. There are some responses to that, to the questions raised, DG and the minister likewise, and the deputy minister. I mean, Deputy Minister Mapela is here. Will follow you after your responses, and then thereafter give the minister to kind of respond as well. Over to you, DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and to the honorable members for the feedback, the comments and the questions raised. Chair, I think on the issue of the election processes, indeed, it's an area of focus. In fact, where our deputy minister has started on a national outreach program as we speak, where he's moving from province to province to talk specifically about the rollout of the implementation of this new piece of legislation, which includes the issue of the elections of members of traditional councils. So from our side, we have taken what the Act provides for and come up with a schedule of activities which we have set to each province in the build up to the election. These are the do's and don'ts. You need to make sure that this is in place, that's in place, and so on and so on. And then we will then be monitoring it from a national to make sure that we are able to identify areas where there might be the risk of non-compliance and so on. So that outreach, national outreach, it's starting tomorrow in the Northern Cape, where the Deputy Minister will be meeting with the Provincial House of Traditional Leaders, with the MEC, with officials, as well as with the representatives of the Khoi and San leaders to discuss this. But certainly in terms of our own program, Chairperson, that's something that is receiving attention from us to make sure that this time around, unlike what happened previously, where even the timeframes that were specified in legislation for the elections to take place were missed. They were missed by the majority, if not all provinces. So we note that that emphasis, Chairperson, that you're placing on this issue, and we'll make sure that we certainly attend to it. On publicizing the Customary Initiation Act, yes, I think the issue is that because it has not been signed into law as yet, we just, in the manner of speaking, holding our horses a bit, so that all the other publicizing work can then happen once it has been signed into law by the president. So the critical issues, Chairperson, that you're raising, it means that in our APP, where we talk about awareness raising campaigns, once this act becomes law, then the content of the act will be the content of the awareness raising campaigns that will be running across the country for purposes of publicizing the legislation. So we just waiting for that step to be taken, where it becomes an act, and then it can then be used to inform the awareness raising campaigns that will be running throughout the country. We've noted the concern, Chairperson, you raise about the Khoi and San leadership aspect in terms of the Traditional and Khoi and San Leadership Act. And I think in part what our Deputy Minister is doing in this outreach is exactly to seek to address through the outreach process and the needs that are there on the ground, to understand now that the Act has come into operation, what is next, how do we go about it, and so on and so on. And certainly the presentations that the team has prepared in support of the work that the Deputy Minister will be doing go step by step to explain these issues. But yes, our understanding is that those that have been at the Union Building, the last time we checked, they were still there. And Chairperson, there have been engagements. There have been engagements with them. There has been engagements led by COCTA. There have been engagements led by the presidency. I know that the late Minister Mthembu was involved in that. I know that the DG in the presidency was involved in that. I think the tricky part here is just that some of the issues that get raised then become very difficult to resolve immediately. So for example, they say no, restoration of land that was taken away from us. And when you talk about the process that government has embarked on in terms of land restitution, they say, yeah, but that is taking too long. Until you're saying to us, restitution has happened, we are not leaving. There is an issue being raised about First Nation status. They say we are the first nation in Southern Africa and you all found us here. So we want you to say you will recognize that status. And when the discussion says no, but the Constitution doesn't talk about first class and second class citizens. And so the issue of First Nation status will be difficult to accommodate in the current constitutional setting. You say no, until you address that, we are not leaving. And then there is another issue that says no, scrap the use of the word colored. It's offensive. We are the Khoisan San. The word colored must never be used. But of course, there are those chairpersons that, as you might know, self-identify as colors. And they would say, no, we are colors, don't call us something else. So you can't then just say, we are going to scrap out this name without a proper process, because otherwise you're going to have others saying, no, but you can't do that. So those engagements are continuing, but I'm just flagging these issues to say that they are not easy. They are not easy because of the nature of the demands. In fact, much more recently, Chairperson, the President and the Deputy Minister had a meeting with the National Khoisan San Council to raise particularly this concern about those that are at the Union Building, and to say, let's find ways in which we can address their plight. So those engagements are indeed continuing, Chairperson, but they are quite difficult given the nature of the issues that are being placed on the table by Mr. Khoisan SA. Thanks, Chairperson.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Deputy Minister. Is the Deputy Minister there? Oh, I don't see him here. Can I invite the Honorable Minister? Honorable Minister. I assume but I see Honorable Minister is here on the platform. She's still here. In the absence of the reaction, I think we are going to, my suggestion is that we must approach it as such. There are a lot of issues in this area of traditional affairs, and unfortunately, we have not engaged extensively and properly with the department. And I think this time around, we need to come closer to the department and really deal with those particular issues that honorable members have raised, so that we know what is happening and we continue to seek solutions and good approaches to the issue of the traditional affairs and the traditional leadership, as it were. With that in mind, can I invite the last presentation on the MISA? MISA can fly it. the presentation so that you deal with it. MISA, our Municipal Infrastructure Support agent, it is helping different provinces and municipalities to unlock issues of infrastructure backlog and infrastructure problems because of the lack of capacity. And I think it's quite important to get information because in the municipality there remain potholes, there remain issues of the roads, electricity, and infrastructure. So, and we need to see what MISA is doing because it was specifically created as an entity by government to pay attention to this important area of work. And over to you, the DG of MISA, with the annual performance plan, as well as the budget. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, and good afternoon to you and honorable members. Good afternoon to our Minister and Deputy Minister and DGs and our colleagues. I will take you through, honorable members, our plan for 2021-2022 financial year. In the interest of time, I won't spend much on the purpose, which is to brief the committee on our plans for 2021-2022. Next slide. Also key on our introduction is to confirm to the committee that we did table our APP for the financial year in Parliament on due date by the 15th of March 2021. Next slide. And also this slide reflects our vision, mission, and values, which have not changed, Chair. I'm not gonna go through the content of those. I will take as read. Next slide. This slide reflects the 7 priorities for the MTF, as well as we have then highlighted the 3 priorities that the MISA plan respond to, which is priority number 1, 4, and 6. Next slide. And in terms of our plan for the 2021-2022, we have 31 outputs with 32 corresponding output indicators. You will notice that, that our main core program, which is the technical support services, account for 19 of these outputs, followed by our second core program, infrastructure development management support, with 6 and 7 output indicators, and then administration with 6 outputs and 6 output indicators. Next slide. In terms of program 1, our strategic outcome there is to improve governance, administrative support systems, and ethical practices in our organization. And we have planned output indicators of 1, implementing our approved communication strategy and report against. In this financial year, we've planned to report through 4 quarterly reports that will be issued in terms of the implementation of the approved communication strategy. Also, we have got a plan to implement our annual risk management plan and report against it, and we have planned to issue 4 quarterly reports against this annual risk management plan. Next slide. And also in terms of the internal audit plan, we have an indicator to implement it and the report against. Again, we have got 4 quarterly reports that will be issued against this plan showing the implementation. And then we have got also a plan to implement our approved ICT operational plan and report against, and there are 4 quarterly reports on implementation that will be issued. Next slide. Another same strategic outcome, we are planning to achieve unqualified audit opinion on annual financial statements, and that's what we'll be doing in this financial year. Of course, our aim is to maintain the clean audit status, Chair. And also, in terms of the approved procurement plan, we are planning to implement same and report against it. We have a target of 4 quarterly reports against that approved procurement plan. Next slide. Coming to our core program, program 2, the outcome, the strategic outcome there is effective water management system for the benefit of all. And they were saying in terms of the outputs, an output indicator, a number of municipal water conservation and or water demand management strategies be implemented. There, Chair, already we have got water conservation and demand management strategies and plans that MISA already assisted 10 municipalities to develop. So we said instead of doing new strategies on new municipalities, let's rather focus, given our budget, on assisting the 10 municipalities that we assisted to develop these plans, to implement the plans. Hence, there you see we'll focus on those 10 municipalities that we have assisted before to develop those the water conservation and demand management strategies and plans. And another outcome, strategic outcome, Chair, which is efficiency in infrastructure management. There, Chair, we have prioritized the alignment of bulk water infrastructure and reticulation in priority water services authorities. This arises out of the assessment that was done by DWS, where we discovered that about 18 water service authorities have got bulk infrastructure complete, but there are no reticulation, there's no reticulation infrastructure to ensure that that bulk water infrastructure benefit the people. So we assisted 5 of those water authorities to do a feasibility studies in terms of what can be done and to make sure that the issue of aligning the bulk and reticulation infrastructure is prioritized. And we have done those feasibility studies for 5 municipalities, and we'll be assisting the 5 municipalities now to prioritize projects in those feasibility studies and make sure that the issue of addressing the misalignment is attended to. Next slide. Also moving with the same strategic outcome, we have municipalities that we need to support with the enhancement of job creation through implementation of labor-intensive infrastructure projects. This indicator, Chair, arises out of a presidential employment stimulus, which President pronounced upon last year. And MISA was allocated 50 million rand to assist municipalities as part of capacity, enhancing the capacity of MISA to assist municipalities to mainstream labor-intensive construction methods in the implementation of projects that are implemented through existing grants. So we have prioritized 15 municipalities this financial year already. We have appointed service providers who are assisting us to do the mainstreaming of these labor-intensive construction methods in the implementation of projects. And over and above that, we have in the reviewed MIG framework set aside 20% of a MIG budget towards projects that will use labor-intensive construction method, and MISA will be monitoring that and assisting those municipalities to implement. And then also under the same outcome, Chair, we have municipalities that have got challenge in terms of asset management. In fact, many municipalities have got a serious challenge. And I think members, when they raised questions in the DCOG presentation, this matter was also raised. And we said what we're going to do here, we're going to support municipalities to improve infrastructure asset management practices. In this regard, Chair, Mr. Fossey did allude to the fact that we have now reviewed MIG to make provision, 10% provision towards addressing repairs and maintenance of existing infrastructure, as well as 5% towards infrastructure asset management planning. So MISA will be supporting in this current financial year, we prioritize 8 water safety authorities with the implementation, and then we'll then progress in the next financial year with the rest. And also in terms of dealing with the issues of operation and maintenance related activities, we have a number of 30 municipalities that will be supporting to implement operations and maintenance related projects. In this regard, we have assisted a number of these municipalities already to develop operations and maintenance plans. So we'll be assisting with the implementation of those plans. Next slide. Also moving under the same outcome, we have also an output there aimed at supporting districts to improve performance on MIG program. And we're saying the number of districts supported to improve performance on MIG program and reduce infrastructure backlog will be focusing on the 44 districts. In this, honorable members, will see that in the DCOG APP, there is a focus on the 85% expenditure. And in the MISA APP, we're not focusing on the expenditure, but on the outcome of that expenditure, the quality of outcomes, and ensure that the MIG is used for the intended purpose. And in this regard, in the reviewed MIG framework, MISA has been given a more prominent role to approve business plans of municipalities and ensure that those business plans are fit for purpose and it will be will result in the MIG program being used appropriately and for the intended purpose. And also there will be no budget overruns because of designing of some of the projects by consultants. So we've got that role now, which previously was not necessarily there. So we'll be focusing on the 44 priority districts. And then in terms of the issue of youth development, there we have got the youth that we're targeting to enroll in the MISA apprenticeship program. And we're targeting 100 youth that will be enrolled in the MISA apprenticeship program. And also youth that will be enrolled in the MISA experiential learning program. We're targeting 70 young people that will be enrolled in the MISA experiential learning program. Next slide. Also under the same outcome, youth also enrolled in the MISA Young Graduate Program. There were a target of 150 young graduates that will be recruited and placed in the MISA Young Graduate Program. And also we have got the target of assisting youth with MISA technical bursary to assist them, those who want to study towards built environment professions. There we have a target of 100 young people that will be assisting with bursaries infrastructure. And then another one is the number of municipal officials that will be trained in municipal infrastructure management. There we have got a target of 500 municipal officials that will be assisted. Next slide. And then also under the same outcome, a number of officials capacitated through recognition of prior learning programs with a target of 100 municipal officials that will be assisted through the MISA recognition of prior learning program. And also a number of municipal officials that will be number of municipal capacity development plans that will be implemented. Already we have developed together with these 15 municipalities their capacity development plans, and with this financial year we'll be supporting them to implement these plans. We have got 9 municipalities, I think in Limpopo, and 6 in Mpumalanga already that we have assisted. So this financial year will be hand-holding them on the implementation. Then the next outcome, strategic outcome, which is enhanced intergovernmental and interdepartmental coordination through the implementation of a district development model. Here we are targeting 44 district municipalities that will be supported with the implementation of integrated infrastructure plans. Next slide. Another strategic outcome, which is a spatially just and transformed national space economy that enables equal access to social service and economic opportunities in cities, regions, and rural areas. There, our focus through our town and regional planners is to support municipalities with the SPLUMA compliant and ensure that the municipal spatial plans, policies, structures, and systems are reviewed to ensure that they comply with SPLUMA. So it's an ongoing work that we do in municipalities, and also through our planners, we also assist municipalities with the review of the ITPs to make sure that there's alignment with the SPLUMA. Next slide. And then this outcome, which is to improve municipal capacity to deliver basic services, quality infrastructure, and integrated public transport to increase household access to basic services. There we've got 2 basic services infrastructure that will be supporting municipalities on the implementation of solid waste and integrated waste management plans. We have a target of 10 municipalities, and also districts that will be supported to improve capacity and access to electricity services with implementation of performance monitoring strategy and electricity supply management strategies. Again, we've got 10 municipalities there that will be supported. And already we have assisted this municipality with the development of some of these plans. Next slide. Under the same outcome, we have a number of districts that will be supported with the compilation, implementation, infrastructure, functionality, assessment reports. Here we've got 6 districts that will be supported this financial year. Next slide. Then coming to program 3, our second core program, under the outcome efficiency in infrastructure management. There we've got a number of districts that will be supported with the implementation of infrastructure delivery management system, which we currently partnering with Treasurer on, and we have a target of 7 municipalities there that will be supported, and also a number of districts that will be supported with the enhancement of infrastructure procurement practices. We have a target of 15 municipalities there. We are working with Treasurer in all these output indicators, and also the other one will be developing an annual report on the state of municipal functionality for infrastructure delivery. We have got we'll have one report that will talk to the issue of the annual of the state of municipal functionality for infrastructure delivery. Next slide. Under the same outcome, a number of municipalities that will be supported to improve infrastructure development through partnerships with public, private sector, and non-governmental entities. There's a lot of work already underway here in partnership with TPSA DWS, and other stakeholders. So we have a target of 10 municipalities that will be supported. And also we have a plan to support municipalities with long-term infrastructure investment plans. And we're working with our department here through the IUTF program unit, where we'll be supporting a number of municipalities and a lot of long-term investment plans with a target of 7 municipalities. Next slide. Another same outcome, we have got a target of supporting municipalities to access alternative funding sources for infrastructure development. We've got 7 municipalities that are targeted. And on the increased access to climate change mitigation and adaptation funds by municipalities, which is another outcome, we have a target of assisting 5 municipalities this financial year to plan and implement climate-friendly projects through infrastructure grants and access funding for climate change mitigation and adaptation projects. Again, we are working very closely with some of the stakeholders there. That is the end of the APP. If we can move to the resources consideration. In terms of the resource consideration, Chair, you will notice, Chair, that this financial year, our budget is 344 million, 345 million, if I round it off. And you will see that it has been declining, Chair, if you look into our allocation for 2018-19, for instance. And of course, in 2020-21, it increased because of the 50 million that were given by National Treasury. And I must also report that last year we had a budget cut of 18 million as part of the general cut that happened in all the departments. But if you look into the split in terms of our allocation to the 3 programs, our core program takes the biggest chunk of our allocation, which is 225 million. And our support program administration takes 91 million. And our second core program, IDMS, take 27 million. Next slide. This slide, it does indicate in terms of each program, the split. And I'm not gonna go through each. Also in the next slide is the same. Next slide. Also, I'm not gonna go through this slide. Next slide. As well as this one. And then the last one is the last slide, Chair. Thank you very much. And we recommend that the Select Committee note the MISA APP. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for briefing the committee in terms of the APP as well as the budget for the agent for 2021-22 financial year. Let's take, let me invite members of parliament to engage with the presentation so that, yes, I see only one hand. Honorable Sheikh, Honorable Sileku. Yes, in that order. Over to you, Honorable Sheikh.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Chairperson, I think let me also just thank MISA for that presentation as well. However, Chairperson, you know, being the National Council of Provinces, we also interested in provincial issues in the national sphere of government. And I think in terms of the presentation, where not all of the districts and or municipalities are being targeted, I think it will be important for MISA to provide us with a breakdown of which municipalities and which districts are being supported and in which provinces. I think it will assist us also in our oversight work coming from various provinces. And it will also allow us to have a more constructive and in-depth engagement with the MISA program. But Chairman, perhaps this information should be provided to the committee. And I think, Chair, that if we do get such information, like I said, we are interested in what is being delivered in the various provinces that we come from. And we'd also want to know how MISA prioritizes some districts or municipalities, and also what criteria that they use to do this. But lastly, Chair, I would also want to know in terms of MISA's capacity to assist municipalities in the various provinces, whether they have some kind of breakdown around that, or whether they have sufficient personnel to do the kind of work that they do. That's all from me, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sheikh. Can we take Honorable Sileku?
Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies for my camera.
Followed by Honorable Mutsamai, Kenny.
No, Chair, but I think I will latch to what Honorable Sheikh has said. Mine basically is just for MISA just to explain what criteria they use to select municipalities for support. Does a municipality have to apply, or does someone send them the names of municipalities in distress, or how do they support? And also, Chair, maybe what MISA needs to give to us, maybe in the past, in this current financial year, or the one that has passed, just to give us an indication per province to say which municipalities have been assisted by them, so that we as a committee can actually have an oversight role, maybe so that we can zoom in and see and talk to these people that has been supported. Because support sometimes gives you results and support sometimes does not give you results. For us to be able to assist MISA, we must be able to understand who they supported and what have been their challenges in terms of support. And when they leave, are these municipalities able to do their jobs, and make sure that they maintain this infrastructure? Because if we don't maintain our infrastructure, then we will not produce or create a conducive environment for the private sector to come and invest in our municipalities. And also, Chair, maybe just to elaborate also in terms of the bursaries that they are giving to, and the undergraduates program that they are running as MISA. Can they also just give us a criteria and what processes they follow? And also maybe to assist us as a committee to give us a report of who they have, of how many students or undergraduates have they assisted in the past financial year, and maybe to also have an understanding those that have actually completed this particular program, if they are currently in employment, or are they still unemployed? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sileku. Honorable Mutsamai.
Chairperson. Chairperson, ne ke batla ho botsa hore MISA e kile ya assista Imfuleni municipality, because municipality a Imfuleni under 139, and ka taba tsa di bursary bana ba mo Imfuleni bontsi ba bone ga gona anything e leng gore they are being helped. Ebile le NSFAS e feitse a bona hona le mo ile gore ba thusa teng, o ba kile ba etela ba bona gore re mathateng a kana nkang ka mo Imfuleni. Ke a leboga, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mutsamai. Any other hand? In the absence of any other hand, let me just make some few remarks. Firstly, I joined all members to welcome the presentation. I think just the intention of why MISA was established is very noble. to support municipalities in terms of technical expertise and doing the actual capacity development, or even helping in the addressing of the backlog at municipal level. This is quite good, but I think the key question that needs to be explained to members, as members are asking is, what criteria do you use to support a particular municipality? I know that you have a footprint in almost all the provinces, but how do you select the municipality that needs to be held? I'm from a city of Makosana, where, as part of our work in terms of Section 100 intervention in the Northwest, some members of parliament visited that city. The infrastructure has collapsed. The roads are the worst, and the municipality is doing little to save the situation. How do we help such a municipality? For me, that is very much important, and it's a key question because we need to see the results of your intervention. And second question for me is, do your programs, whether it is internship or in the way that you explain it, capacitating students and learners, and yeah, in that way, internship, doing technical advisory service to the municipalities, helping the municipalities in respect of the actual work, is it yielding positive results? Do we see progress? Because for me, these problems, and I don't blame Lisa at all, these problems keep on recurring and recurring and recurring in the different municipalities. The last one, in the past, there was a program, I think it was called Zamanji, of taking people who with the necessary experience, who are retired, helping municipalities in this respect. Do you have a similar program, or you are part of that program if it is still existing? Because I saw it very much helpful where you had engineers from who have retired, who are going to municipalities and helping municipalities in that sense, especially in the area of water, of wastewater, as well as road infrastructure. Do we have such people identified working and supporting municipalities to that end? Any responses, DG?
Thank you very much, Chair. Maybe, Chair, I should start with your last question, but my colleagues will also come in to respond. I have DDG Mapatane Homo, acting DDG Lundu Ndalasi, as well as Mr. Sam Gobeni. They will also be assisting in responding to the questions, Chair. But if I may start with your question in relation to the Sienza Manje program. If you recall, Chair, that program was de-established, and the engineering component of it was transferred to MISA as part of the establishment of MISA, and the finance component of it was transferred to Treasury to establish what is currently called a city support program in Treasury. And however, in MISA, what we have since done in 2015, we did a refocusing of MISA strategy. And the The engineers that were transferred then were individual consultants from DBSA. Now, we then insourced the capacity and appointed permanent, experienced engineers in MISA, who are then deployed in various provinces to support various prioritized districts with the implementation of municipal infrastructure programs. So we do have a capacity of currently over 84 engineers and planners who are in these municipalities supporting. But over and above that, currently we in our program we've got over 70 engineering young graduates as well as planners who are also augmenting our capacity on the ground to support municipalities with the infrastructure programs and a number of other specialists that are based in head office supporting our teams in provinces. And also in terms of is MISA assisting, I think the question by Honorable Musamai, is MISA assisting Mfuleni? Yes, we have a team. But one of our chief engineers is based in Mfuleni, actually assisting Mfuleni on a full-time basis. But over and above that, our team are leading interdepartmental technical committee that is charged with the turnaround program of Mfuleni together with DWS as well as the province of Gauteng. So we are there, and Mr. Ngobeni will talk to the issue of the bursaries and the assistance that we are providing there in terms of the communities. And also in terms of the criteria that we use to prioritize a particular municipality. It's a combination, Chair, of what we do every year. We do assessment of the capacity of municipalities, and also through the program that is led by Mr. Fosi, as well as through National Treasury. We then look into the municipalities that are currently in distress, both in terms of governance, service delivery, as well as finance, and then have a list which we will then use to prioritize our intervention based on the available resources over and above the assessment that we do on the site as MISA, as part of our criteria. And I think I've responded to the criteria. MISA to give a committee, I think is Honorable Silego. Yes, we are going to provide the committee with a list of all the municipalities that we are targeting, as well as in which provinces they are in, and also the municipalities that we have already supported in the previous financial year. And of course, we'll indicate the challenges as well that we have experienced and achievements where we have managed to score some achievements in terms of support that were provided to municipalities. And yeah, this also answered the question raised by Honorable Sheikh on the breakdown of the districts that we will be supporting. So we'll provide that information. In terms of our capacity, I think I've responded to that. But over and above the engineering capacity that we have and the planning capacity that I've alluded to, as well as the young graduates, we want to increase the number now to 250. We currently have 70. And this young graduates program, we have now agreed that they must work hand in hand with our experienced engineers for purposes of mentoring and support them towards professional registration, with the aim of creating a skills pipeline for MISA, but also for municipalities as well. But over and above that, the apprenticeship program that we have indicated a number of the 100 plus 70 apprenticeship program that we are currently running in a number of municipalities. And our colleague, Mr. Ngobeni, first will come in and talk to the bursary program and the impact of our intervention program in terms of training programs in municipalities. And DDG Luntundalas, acting DDG Luntundalas also come in to add where I've not sufficiently responded. And of course, and DDG party as well. In terms of sufficient, we have sufficient resources. No, we don't. Hence, I was highlighting the fact that our budget has been cut and it has not really seen any significant growth over the years, but the expectations in terms of the work that we do has increased tremendously, and we would appreciate, any growth in our budget. And our minister and the DG have really tried very, very hard to make sure that we do get the necessary support from National Financial Treasury. And there is a process underway to make sure that we are supported. But also, we are also partnering with some departments as well as other stakeholders to co-fund some of the programs where MISA would not have sufficient resources. For instance, currently we have got a project that we're implementing with Cooperative, KZN in Emondlo, in Abakulusi. So they have put in money, we've put in money. So we're implementing that project. Thank you very much. Mr. Ngobeni first, and then Luntu and DDG Party. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much.
That order, please.
Thanks very much, CEO. Chair, in response to Honorable Mseleku's question on the criteria and processes that are followed by MISA in identifying candidates for the bursary, the learnership, as well as the candidacy programs, we advertise in the national papers for all those programs. But before advertising, we conduct a need analysis with municipalities, where municipalities are afforded the opportunity to express their interests to host MISA learners and or candidates. This is applicable in particular to the learnership programs and the candidacy programs. The learnership programs here will be the experiential learnership as well as the apprenticeship. Then the candidacy program is the young graduate program that the CEO of MISA has already reported on. So that is the procedure or the process that we follow in getting participants. The question asked by Honorable Mzamai pertaining to assistance that MISA is giving to Mfuleni, particularly to the learners in these youth programs. I can report, Chair, that currently we have got 2 young graduates who are hosted by Mfuleni local municipality. One of them is a civil engineer, the other one is a project and construction manager. They both started in January 2019, so they are still in the candidacy program. In response to the question by the Chair on whether the learnership or candidacy programs are yielding positive results, what we would regard as positive results indeed will be a situation where upon completion of their candidacy or learnership programs, they get then absorbed by the host municipalities. We can report in here that the absorption is very poor. you often find that municipalities, upon completion by these learners and candidates of their programs, are not ready to absorb. Instead, they will request MISA to continue funding the learners, and in some instances, they will request MISA to even appoint them on a temporary basis, but more especially on a program where we're deploying artisans in the past. We did do that with some municipalities across the country. I think it was about 9 where we're piloting, but very few of them were finally absorbed by the municipality. So that is a challenge that we have. And as a result, we are gradually moving towards supporting municipal officials through our artisan recognition of prior learning program and other programs, because those ones are already in the employ of municipalities. It therefore makes it easy for them to immediately add value to the performance of the municipalities in as far as for infrastructure management is concerned. Thank you very much.
Don't do.
You said
Thank you very.
Okay.
Oh, thank you very much, CEO, and good afternoon, Chairperson, Minister, and the committee members. I think the CEO has covered majority of the questions that we're talking to Program 2, but perhaps just to give an insight to what you've raised, Chairperson, on support around Northwest. Fortunately, amidst the challenges that Northwest is experiencing, we have been assigned to coordinate other sector departments to support the province, particularly on issues like roads and water. We are chairing the infrastructure forums. We are engaging Department of Transport to support the municipalities around the road asset management system, so that we can ensure that we provide funding to alleviate the situation around the municipalities in the Northwest. So we're doing that and that coordination in the spirit of DDM, where we are leading the infrastructure sector. So we're calling all the departments to provide support in the programs that have been identified within those municipalities. So that is a support that we are providing, and we have all our engineers working around the districts within Northwest. Some municipalities are even privileged that we have we placed our engineers on an acting capacity just to keep the municipalities afloat. So we're very much supporting. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, BDG Huma.
Thank you, and good afternoon, Chairperson, members, Minister, Deputy Minister, DG, CEO, and colleagues. Nothing much from my side, safe to just add to the criteria that we apply as MISA to support municipalities. I think the other factor that we look at is municipalities' MEAG expenditure. For example, on the KPI that we have introduced as MISA to support municipalities to enhance their infrastructure procurement practices, we look at those municipalities that struggle to spend their MIG allocations. Those are the municipalities that we target because in most instances, the reason for the poor MEAG infrastructure is because of the weak and inefficient practices on procurement being applied by municipalities. And perhaps also to add to the question of whether we have the capacity. And as the CEO has rightfully said, we do not have adequate capacity, and we also rely a lot on establishing strategic partnerships, both in the public as well as in the private sector. For example, we have partnered with the University of Cape Town, the Faculty of Engineering, where we are utilizing the third-year students to actually do information collection as well as analysis on municipalities' infrastructure management practices. That information is very crucial in then determining the kind of support that we as MISA need to provide to municipalities with the objective of supporting them to improve infrastructure such that it is reliable and they provide a sustainable delivery of services. We also have partnerships with the likes of the National Business Initiative, who have actually put in resources to fund certain projects in, I think it's in Waterberg municipality, district municipality through the DDM. So we are in the process of extending and expanding on our partnerships because we have realized that we do not have the adequate resources as MISA, and we rely mainly on the funding that we receive from the department. But then we've then resolved that we have to look outside of what we are being allocated, because the need on the ground for infrastructure support in the municipalities is quite huge when you look at the resources that we have as MISA. Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'll pause here.
Thank you. CEO, any last word from you? Are you okay?
Yeah, just the last word, Chair, just to also brief the committee that as part of our strategy to build a capacity, we have resolved to purchase some drilling machines for MISA, so that instead of having to rely on consultants to assist municipalities with boreholes and so forth, as MISA using the existing capacity in terms of technical capacity, we do those boreholes ourselves and ramp up access to water by municipalities. We think this will go a long way in ensuring that more people do have access to water and we are not constrained by the issue of resources to go out on tender and procure consultants and contractors. So it's a work that we are busy working on. And also we have also purchased the software packages for design, so that we build in a design capacity of a specific type of infrastructure within MISA as part of our support to municipality, again to reduce over-reliance on consultants for designing of municipal infrastructure for municipalities. So we'll be doing that work, and this is part and parcel of building our capacity, but also of ensuring that going forward, MISA were able to also generate revenue through doing this work of drilling boreholes using our machinery and our consultants, and charge municipalities a cost recovery. Thanks, Chair.
All right, thank you very much. Is the Honorable Minister still there?
Yes,
Minister?
Chairperson.
Yes.
Yes, Chairperson, I'm still
your last
here.
word.
Well, first, let me thank all of you for the opportunity and the participation. I think when it comes to MISA, we really wish we had more resources to grow it bigger so that we can support as many municipalities as we can. But as the CEO says, we're trying our best. But let me also just say it's always a pleasure to have these discussions with the Select Committee, and I thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. From our side, I think we are going to flow in from these plans that you tabled, the 3 plans that you tabled this afternoon. We are going to look at them, isolate issues that we think are priorities, develop our own plan as the select committee, and begin to engage with the department. We will do so as part of our oversight function of holding you accountable for what you presented before us in terms of the plans, in terms of how you spend the budget, and in terms of the impact that you make as a department to address all those particular issues. We think we can make it and be successful if we forge links, we become robust in our approach, we criticize where we have to, but we also support accordingly and ensure that we work together in that spirit of ensuring that we are all winners at the end of the day. As we pointed out, we go to the elections, and this department, it is going to be very key in terms of assisting the process towards the elections and the post-election situation, because those who are in the necessary processes have got to be put in place, the necessary structures have got to be established, the necessary capacities to those who are new. All of those things have got to happen, because at the end of the day, this fear, as much as it is pressurized, is a sphere that we all know that it's at a cold face, and it has got to make an impact in terms of changing the lives of our people. And that is what we are going to do from our side as a committee. And in the context of the situation where we're finding ourselves, we will really outside the interventions, whether it's 100 or 139, outside those processes, we do our normal oversight visits to provinces and municipalities to check on our own. How is the situation developing? And like I'm saying, doing it within the parameters and the context of COVID-19 regulations that are binding us. With that, once more, thank you very much, Honorable Minister, Deputy Minister, and the team. I think this was very useful, was very helpful. Members of Parliament are enlightened. Where we are, we know what is it that you want to do in terms of the APPs and the budget that you want to spend going forward. And I really wish to thank you for sharing this information with us. I'm told that next week it will be a debate in the House where we're debating the vote, and we're looking forward to doing that in the context of having being empowered as Parliament about your intentions for the year. Thank you very much for that. Thank you very much, honorable members, for attending this important briefing session by the Minister and the team. On that note, let us close the meeting. The meeting is adjourned, and thank you very much for attending. Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Kello.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much to all the members. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.